Hi, so I'm Academic Bean. I'm a PhD student and I'm at a university in London. And it was around this time of year that I first started looking for flats. It might help some of you just secured a PhD, or maybe you're still in the interview process to know kind of what goes into finding a flat in London, because it can be very, very difficult and very expensive. So I'm going to break down kind of step by step what you're going to need to do, and hopefully it'll help. So the first thing that you want to do is figure out, who are you going to live with? Do you have a partner to split the rent with? Do you want to meet some people and have a flat share? How many bedrooms are you going to need? So these kind of, if you're going to live in a flat with 5 people, this is a very search to if you're looking for just a 1 bedroom or maybe a studio. But working out what kind of housing you're looking for is very important and kind of good place to start. And kind of moving on from the number of people, come to a decision about what features are important to you. It might be that you really don't want to live in a basement flat, or maybe you don't want to live in a particular area of London. But I'd also have a list of preferences that you are willing to compromise on. It might be that you don't want to live on a ground floor flat, but that might be something you're willing to compromise on, and that kind of thing. Then, and this is really important, figure out what your budget is. And I would recommend having 2 budgets. So one is kind of what you would like to spend, and kind of an optimistic, and then I would have something that's maybe £50 a month or maybe £100 a month higher, which is your absolute, I can't afford to spend more than that. And what I would look for initially are what's in that first range and what's in that second range, and see what properties come up, because you might be able to find something that, if you compromise on one of the things that is in your preference list, is a great platform. But yeah, I would have two kind of budget numbers to work with. And if you're in a larger group, these kind of things can trickle down to very small amounts of money, but it does add up. Then get an idea of different areas in London. So I would look at the price for, if you're looking for a 1 bed, look for a 1 bed, but look at it in just a couple of different areas. See what kind of prices, what makes a massive difference. If you go a 5-minute walk from the tube stop, does the price drop dramatically? In some areas it'll be significant, some not so much. But yeah, look at what different areas are like in terms of price, see if there's any crime problems, what's the atmosphere like, are there restaurants, are there, supermarkets nearby, and think about what kind of area. The next thing is also important, get an idea of the areas that are within your commuting distance. So use stuff like travel time maps, because working out what's close in terms of commuting distance is not just a kind of linear correlation with actual kind of as the crow flies distance. The tube is quite fast, so if you're on a tube line or in kind of proximity to a tube line, that's going to really save on the commute. So you can be closer by several miles, but actually take longer if you've got to then commute to the tube station. So there's different things to think about. Figure out what your maximum commute time, because you will spend a considerable amount of time going into the university. If you are someone who's expecting to, work mainly remotely some of the time, it might be that the commuting distance is a bit longer, but yeah, figure out what kind of commute you're looking for. The next thing is kind of important, and I didn't see it mentioned on too many kind of these blog sites which tell you what to do. Find a guarantor. So on a PhD stipend, you are very unlikely, unless you've got some extra award money, to hit the minimum threshold that most letting agents are going to ask for when it comes to hitting like a guaranteed income amount. What that means is you're going to need to have some other kind of, either an entity at the university or, a parent, family member who can guarantee a certain amount of salary. So I think the threshold is something around 40,000 per annum. If you have no family who meet that requirement, or you are struggling to find a guarantor, I would speak to the university as soon as possible, because they services for you. The next thing that kind of comes as a shock, if you're used to kind of smaller deposits or cheaper rent, is the first month's rent will be kind of as a deposit, as in it will be the same amount as what you're paying monthly, which can be a lot of money. So having that kind of saved up, so I would start saving that up at the beginning of the summer, maybe a little bit further before, but it's something to keep in mind that it will be coming up. Because of how stipends are paid, it might be that you are kind of in the negatives for a little while before the stipend comes in. Most of your stipend contracts are going to say, you need to be able first months of expenses, which can be difficult. if you're coming from, straight from a master's, or you're not come from employment and you're not got much savings. So that's something to be aware of, but try not to worry about it. There's normally a way to kind of figure it out. So in terms of timeline, I would suggest that you start researching areas and finding out where you want to live, all that commuting stuff, about 6 months before the start date. Have a guarantor ready 2 months before. Start regularly checking letting agents' listings about 2 months before, so you're going to get familiar with how the letting agent sites work, what's the contact methods, what are all the details that are important to you. It's stuff like checking, does it have a gas boiler, what's the central heating, stuff like that probably all just fall into your preference lists, if I'm honest. Most people aren't going to care. But yeah, looking for stuff like that. Actually viewing and making offers on the flat, I would start no more than 6 weeks. If you start further before, what tends to happen in London is they're going to want you to move in within the month. So if you find a really nice flat but can't move in for, 3 or 2 months, that's not very helpful to the letting agent, and they're just going to find someone else who can move in more immediately. So yeah, start viewing and making offers 6 weeks before, and kind of not anymore before that. Top tips are be patient. It can be quite a draining process. Be flexible and be quick. So for me, when I was looking at flats, one of the flats we called kind of 5 minutes after it turned up on Rightmove, and in those 5 minutes someone kind of taken it. I wouldn't recommend taking anything without viewing it. If you really are struggling and it's getting very close to your start date, maybe at that point consider taking something without viewing it. But you should have time to, with the 6 weeks, you should have time to, see 1 or 2 properties at minimum. But yeah, so like the one that we ended up going for, we went in the morning kind of with the first viewing of the day, and we took it kind of as soon as we'd walked out from the viewing, so they actually cancelled the rest of it. So that kind of stuff is very frustrating if that happens to you. Obviously for me it wasn't frustrating because we got the flat, but I can imagine being very disappointed to head to a viewing that's then cancelled. Depending on where you're based, you might need to, a lot of travel time to get from wherever it is you're going to end up living. So I think I was travelling from one side of London to the other. So yeah, those are the kind of things to think about. But yeah, and also one tip is take one of those little card readers with you to the viewing. That way you can transfer the, holding deposit immediately. Or if you have that kind of stuff set up on your phone, you can do it. But normally it's enough money that they want you to use a little pin entry type stuff to verify. But yeah, I hope that helps. It can be quite difficult, can be quite stressful. But in the end, it does all kind of work out because there's enough rental properties floating about. If you do have specific needs, perhaps you need ground floor and more disability friendly kind of stuff. I have no idea process looking for flats is like for that. But similarly, if you've got a pet, it can be very difficult, but not impossible. But maybe if you have specific requirements like that, give yourself a little bit more time and a fork up so that you can pay for a month before you actually to move kind of thing. But yeah, that's kind of my top tips and kind of a discussion of the process. I hope that was helpful. Like and subscribe. Goodbye.